Now, let's speak to the man who started all this, Mr. Brexit himself, Nigel Farage, who's in our studio at Westminster. Hello, Nigel.
Good morning.
Now, you called this Independence Day 3 years ago. Is it?
Well, I'm pleased I didn't hold my breath. But yes, this is what happens tonight at 11 o'clock marks the point of no return. We're leaving the European Union. There is no prospect of us ever going back. And whilst there are big negotiations and important things to follow, this is the big historic moment.
But I was listening to you on LBC a couple of years ago, more recently, where you were talking about the Boris Johnson deal, and you said it's the second worst deal in history. And if you were faced with Remain or the Boris Johnson deal, you would vote Remain.
Oh, had there been a referendum on the deal against Remain, I think Remain may well have won. But something changed. Just before the election, Boris Johnson announced that we would, whatever happens, leave in 2020, end transition in 2020. But he also said, more significantly, we would not have regulatory alignment. And he's maintained that all the way through. In fact, even yesterday, Boris Johnson was talking about a Canada-style trade deal. So I don't like the wording of the text, but I love what the Prime Minister's actually saying. And if he keeps to his promises, if he's tough with Brussels, we will, by the end of this year, have a good deal.
Right, OK, because the worry here is that if it goes wrong, you can say, well, it wasn't the right deal, and get out of it.
I am going to believe what the Prime Minister said just before, during and since the general election, and I will do my best to hold him to it.
Earlier on, we had a comment saying that if it's going to go wrong and you will go missing like Lord Lucan.
Well, I'll tell you something. There was a perception that in 2016, after we won the referendum, that I was perhaps too trusting of Mrs May, who said she'd deliver Brexit, and people thought I'd walked away. I'm not going anywhere. I will keep a close watching brief on all of this throughout the next year and more, and I will praise the Prime Minister to the high heavens if he sticks to the current course and ring the bell of alarm if he doesn't.
Your party did badly in the general election. You've now got no MEPs, so you haven't really got a platform anymore, have you? That's the trouble.
Well, that's where we started, isn't it? We started with nothing. We started being told the whole thing was hopeless and a complete waste of time. And look what we managed to achieve. I think if the Brexit Party hadn't been founded last April, Mrs May would still be Prime Minister. Brexit wouldn't have happened. And don't underestimate the sheer number of people out there that lent their votes to Boris Johnson's Conservatives on the basis that he delivers a proper Brexit.
Wasn't this vote in 2016, though, partly just a vote of not liking how things are and blaming the EU for how things are? And the result has been, and you've seen this in studios all over the place, as have I, just massive division that we may never repair in our lifetimes, Nigel.
Well, the reason for the division is because for the first time in the history of our country, the result of an election wasn't accepted by the losing side. We've even had two former prime ministers go against the will of the people in that referendum. 3.5 years of parliamentary trench warfare, and that's where the division has been. Today I heard Lord Mandelson accepting that we're leaving. Now, he will fight hard for us to stay very close in the next phase, but had the Remainers accepted the result of the referendum, rather than trying to say it had something to do with the Russians or some other weird conspiracy theory, we would not have been through 3.5 years of, I grant you, division.
All right. Now, yesterday there was a photo on Twitter of yourself with a portrait of you, and obviously it was captioned in various interesting ways. We're just showing it now. So Jim Davison in the middle, the portrait behind. It looks like a little bust on the shelf of Brian May, strangely, behind Jim Davison, and you beside Jim Davison and an unidentified other person. Nigel, what on earth is going on there? What's that all about?
I'll tell you what it's about. A guy called Dan Llewellyn-Hall, who's a well-known portrait artist, he's painted the Queen and many other people, said he wanted to do a portrait of me. And I said, well, that's very sweet of you, but if you do it, can we please auction it for charity? And Jim Davidson and Simon Weston, the very badly wounded Falkland Islands veteran, they run a charity called Care After Combat. There are something like 3,500 former servicemen and women living rough on the streets of our country. Now, you could say, shouldn't government look after them? But it doesn't do a very good job of it. So we're auctioning the painting for Jim and Simon's charity, and I was very, very pleased to be able to do that.
Can you tell us who bought it?
Don't know yet. It's going online. careaftercombat.com if anyone fancies spending money.
OK, well, we'll see you at the other side of what is, I guess, your party in Parliament Square. Is that right tonight?
Yeah, that's right. This is a big moment in history. It needs to be marked, and we'll be there in force in Parliament Square. And Big Ben may not bong for Brexit, but we'll play it out of our loudspeakers.
Thank you very much indeed, Nigel Farage.
Thank you.
Joining us live.